back, everybody. And we're so excited to do the second session of today. And before I hand it over, let me just introduce you to the session facilitator and speaker, among many excellent voices in this session. So Stephanie Sievers is a Covering Wisconsin staff member. She has been with us since 2015. So for many years, and she serves as our insurance literacy and communications manager. But if I were to try to say that in a little bit more plain language, which is definitely in Stephanie's ballpark, and this is just a little bit more in plain language, I would say that she is really responsible for what our outreach and promotions look like and say. She doesn't do it all on her own. She definitely has a team, and she recruits Covering Wisconsin staff members and probably many of you whenever she can to help inform those messages and inform that look. But she really is the one who ultimately decides. And so we're so thrilled to have Stephanie and to lead this session. So I will hand it to you.
Okay, is my sound on now? All right, great. Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna just jump right into the session. We all will introduce ourselves as we're rolling. So you could go ahead and put the PowerPoint as the primary. Is it the primary right now? Okay, there we go. Okay, so the 6 people who are going to be talking in this session were all a part of the OCI-DHS Health Coverage Partnership, and we're in the work group for the promotions and marketing. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Okay. We're going to start with the agenda, and I will let Claudine take it away.
Good morning, everyone. We wanted to start off this morning with just a little roadmap, so you know on what we're going to be talking about. We're going to give you a little brief how we all ended up here today, what's the structure that underpins our efforts. Then we're going to take a moment, and you're going to get a chance to meet all the people on the call today and the agencies that they represent. We'll run through kind of what were we trying to achieve and how did we achieve it? What are the lessons that we've learned along the way? We want to share with you some of our achievements that we've managed to challenges we've managed to conquer as we've been working together over this last period of time. We'll show you some of examples of the work that we've done together and the approaches we took to doing that work. And finally, we'll end up with how you can make use of what we talk about today and get involved yourself.
Okay, so the OCI-DHS Healthcare Coverage Partnership was launched by Governor Evers in 2019, and the idea was really to foster better coordination around the state and all the stakeholders to improve enrollments, retention, and the health insurance literacy in the community. From that, 4 work groups emerged, and we're a part of the promotions and marketing work group. And in those early meetings, when we first started getting together and figuring out what are our goals, what do we want to accomplish in this group, some main challenges were identified in the beginning. And part of that is that a lot of the stakeholders in the state, especially nonprofit and government agencies, have really limited budgets for promotions and marketing. So, you have to make challenging decisions about where you're going to spend your dollars. We all were individually potentially putting out different messages that might have been confusing to consumer populations. Parts of the state were being neglected, and that was not at all what we wanted to happen. We really wanted to have the entire state get messaging and really make sure that priority populations were included in that messaging. And the other thing was we identified that there was no one place to go. We're all these different agencies putting out different messages, but where are we sending people? We might be sending them to 10 different places, and we really wanted to narrow that down to a limited scope of where to send people. So who we are when we come together, we are public, private, and nonprofit groups. And, as Governor Evers really imagined this was the place where government agencies who are, working on this work could come together, meet with stakeholders for that coordination. So DHS, the Wisconsin Office of the Commissioner of Insurance, and some other agencies that we're going to introduce in a moment. And what we're doing is we're creating messaging for statewide promotion that's going out for open enrollment and Medicaid throughout the year. SEP messaging, all different types of messaging. And we're going to dig into that in a few minutes as well. And the other thing we do is we bring updates to the quarterly partnership forum on our accomplishments. Okay, Claudine.
So good morning, everybody. I'm Claudine McCarthy. I am the Director of Communications for the Division of Medicaid Services inside the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. And as I expect everybody in this audience knows, we are the state agency that handles all of our state healthcare programs, as well as our supplemental nutrition assistance program, Food Share, in the state of Wisconsin. A little bit about me. I actually joined the Division of Medicaid Services March 4th, 2020. So I have actually never known the Division of Medicaid Services when we weren't in some way responding to the COVID pandemic and its aftermath. It's been a great ride. We've done a lot in the last 3.5 years. Prior to that, I was with the Division of, the Department of Health Services, but I was in, believe it or not, emergency response for the Division of Public Health. And so I was able to bring the skill sets of responding to unexpected circumstances to Medicaid. And I expect that those skill sets will continue to serve me well as we move forward. So glad to be here this morning.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Kelsey McDermott, and I'm an advanced communications specialist with the Office of the Commissioner of Insurance. OCI was created by the legislature in 1870 and works to protect and educate Wisconsin consumers by maintaining and promoting a strong insurance industry. At OCI, I design materials to support outreach and education efforts, create and implement marketing and communication plans, and manage many websites, including westcovered.com. I co-chair the marketing work group with Stephanie and assist with design and production of the group's marketing and communication materials. Thank you for having me.
And since Allison introduced me so thoroughly, I'll just add that I'm the co-chair of this work group with Kelsey, and that Covering Wisconsin is the convener of this conference. So you've probably heard a lot about us already. I'd like to say that a lot of what we do is about messaging in the community, and you may not be familiar with some of our health insurance literacy materials, and I encourage you to go on our website and do some research of that. So, and I do also want to say that a lot of the work that we do would not be possible without the funding we receive. I have a funding statement here that I have to include, but I'd also like to say that a lot of the funding I know for the work I especially do is coming from other sources such as DHS and OCI.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry for jumping on a tad late. My name is Allison True, and I'm the Organizational Advancement Director with the Milwaukee Healthcare Partnership. The Milwaukee Healthcare Partnership is along with Covering Wisconsin, co-convenes the Milwaukee Enrollment Network, and I'm here representing that enrollment network today. So it's a consortium local to Milwaukee of nearly 100 organizations that really support the enrollment and re-engagement of people in their public and private health insurance. We focus on individuals of low income and really work to support not only the front end communications, so direct communications to consumers about their health insurance and about getting covered, but also bolstering but also work on the back end around bolstering the navigator workforce, navigator education, and a number of other educational opportunities in that space alongside Covering Wisconsin. And I'll echo Stephanie in her last comment of would be remiss if we didn't mention some of the funders that really make this Milwaukee Enrollment Network possible, which include the city, the county, our health insurance issuers, our health system partners covering Wisconsin itself, among others. So thanks for having me.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Imani Taylor. I am one of the co-founders of Empower, and we are a mission-driven collective specializing in strategy, marketing, and technology solutions for social good. To put it into regular terms, we like to partner with nonprofits, public health agencies, and grassroots to progress forward health-related resources and initiatives so that we can help create a healthier community in Milwaukee and in the state of Wisconsin. We are locally based in the Milwaukee area, specifically in the Harambe neighborhood. So really proud to be here and happy to converse with you all today, and hope that you appreciate some of the tidbits that we're going to share today.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I am thrilled to be part of this group as well. I'm Trish Sarvella, the Chief Development Officer at Partnership Community Health Center. I've been connected to this work since 2013, when we were the first community health center in the state to hire the first 7 CACs. If you can remember, back in that time, it was very different than it is today, and it was uncharted territory. But we, over the past 10 years, recognize as an organization the value and the role that assisters provide, not only to our patients, but to our community. And we are fully committed to the transformative power that enrollment plays in improving the health of our community. True to our name, our role as a community health center partner in this work is to bring the voice of the patient and the community to this table and this group to ensure that the messaging and the materials are responsive in communication and meet the messaging needs. As one of the 19 community health centers in the state, our voice is critical as we care for thousands of low-income and uninsured Medicaid recipients in our community. I am so excited to be part of this work with this amazing team because we innovate, we design, we address critical messaging and material. That the goal is to educate, energize, and promote the work of our statewide CACs and navigators. In the spirit of true collaboration, this team, and I often say this is my favorite meeting, responds with strategic, equitable, and community-focused materials that bring real and relevant messages that reflect the diversity of our community. And most importantly, link people to the free expert help that enrollment assisters provide. So, what have we been up to? We've accomplished a lot, and many of you may have roamed around on the wiscovered.com site, seen the promotions that are there. And when we look at 237 page views since the launch, wow, that's incredible when we think about what that means as an impact of getting people the information that they want and they need. We continue to work on materials around campaigns for open enrollment, special enrollment periods, and now the unwinding. This continues to be an ongoing discussion and work in progress as we focus on these equitable messages to get out to the community. We're data driven. We look at impressions. We want to see what's happening out there. Who's seeing it? What are they seeing? What's engaging them? We have amazing outreach toolkits that I hope everyone on this session has had a chance to take a look at. At least 43,000 people have visited these pages. And that's really a tribute to the fact that this information is really valuable. It's really accessible. But at the end of the day, we're not just creating stuff to create or having print materials. We're really positioning ourselves as a committee to be nimble, to respond to the communication needs of the diversity of the communities throughout the state. The work we did prior to the unwinding really positioned us to move forward and engage the community, so people were getting important messages around enrollment and now Medicaid unwinding. We continue to look at priority populations to make sure where the messaging resonates and where the outreach is needed. From the HODAG on the bus to lots of community conversations at coffee shops or some of our Get Hooked on Health Insurance. Over the next hour, you'll see some of the materials that we're doing and be inspired, hopefully, to continue to bring us back important information about how to reach the populations you serve.
So I think I'm going to jump in here and just talk a bit about, thanks for that, Trish. A lot of accomplishments, and we're all really proud. And how did we get there? So as a group, as we noted, first, the collaboration is key, and we do that together through these kind of different stages. So first, we established really clear shared goals. I think whenever you're doing collective work, centralizing yourself around that is critical. So we're all trying to help folks either retain or enroll in the best plan possible for them. We meet regularly, so we meet bi-monthly, so we're really in tune with what each other is working on, the current environment, strategies. That's really important, that the consistency is there, both for the relationship building, the environment understanding, and for understanding of strategy. We have an openness and a trust to bring our content to the group and to the community and share for feedback. So we really, really welcome each other's feedback. We welcome the community feedback each of us has gotten on all of our campaigns. And that feedback comes from, the first iterations to collateral we've produced to other things that we've decided to put together. So we really open it up to the group, and we listen to each other, and we trust each other, and we know we're all experts in different pieces. We also share, and this is key, we share each other's time, and we share each other's funds in the sense of understanding what funds are going where. That to me is one of the most critical pieces of this group, is knowing that we have funds coming in and strategies coming in around the state, and people putting out content around the state, some of it broadly, some of it more localized. And by understanding what I'm doing, what you're doing, we can really best leverage our funds and best leverage our strategy, reduce segmentation, reduce duplication. No, you're covering buses here, so I'm going to keep that out of my budget, etc. It's really, really important to leveraging all of the best pieces of each of our strategies and what we were able to develop. We are committed to using the ideas that are generated in the group to keeping a consistency. So again, knowing a lot of our markets cross, is that we want to make sure that anything is put out to the public, or even as resources to navigators or other audiences, that they're consistent and that they're collaborative, so that none of our messages are pushing against each other, that we're all committed to really being on the same page. And another critical factor of collective work that this group has embodied is understanding that credit isn't important, right? So it's not our goal to get MCHEN's name out there or to get a community health center's name out there. And when you accept that, you're able to leverage each other's collateral and say, hey, do you need something that we've produced, use it, rebrand it, etc. We really stray away from the recognition, and we and again are centralized around that goal. And so by being able to leverage each other's messages or leverage each other's collateral or different things, we can really go a lot further with a lot less. And as Trish mentioned, which we'll get into a little bit in the next coming slides, is that really using data to inform our plans. So why are we focusing where? What has had success in the past? Where do the needs lie? And we do that by using some really important pieces of information that have come out of our partners. So I think next we'll learn about the market study, which really greatly informed all of our work, particularly in these critical years of Medicaid unwinding and open enrollment.
Thanks, Allison. So in September 2022, OCI released a new study that analyzed Wisconsin's health insurance marketplace. The report helped to evaluate and monitor the health insurance market and inform the way that we approached our open enrollment marketing campaign. The findings confirmed beliefs that the group had, but also brought about some new findings, which are listed here. The estimated statewide uninsured rate was 5.5% in 2020. People more likely to be uninsured included lower income, persons of color, and Hispanic Latinos of any race. ACA compliant individual market grew 8% from 2018 to 2021, and 212,000 Wisconsin consumers selected plans via healthcare.gov during open enrollment 2022, and 88% of them qualified for premium subsidies. Over half of uninsured adult respondents report knowing a little or nothing at all about healthcare.gov coverage options and financial assistance. Demand for and use of navigators increased substantially in 2021, Covering Wisconsin doubled the monthly amount of consumers helped from 2021 to 2022. State and national surveys confirm the need for more outreach efforts to address consumer knowledge of coverage options, subsidies, cost sharing, deductibles, etc.
So to wrap this section up, kind of what are some of the things that we've learned? I got to say, all the members of this group coming together, we each bring a different background, different areas of expertise, different reaches, different networks that we can tap into for feedback and information. And so everybody brings a little piece of a different perspective to the table. This has meant that as we move forward, to kind of reach our collective and similar goals, we have better coordinated messaging. And that's really important so that we are saying consistently information in ways that people can take in and kind of get our messages across. However, that doesn't mean that we're saying the same thing everywhere. And obviously, different parts of the different audiences in the state, there are different ways to make sure that the messages resonate. Make sure that the modes of conveying the messages are appropriate to the audiences that we're trying to reach. And all of the members of this group, when we come together, can have great conversations and ask good questions to help kind of spur the thought process of, have you considered this? Maybe for this part of the state, we might want to try something a little different here. Oh, I have a contact that maybe you could work with. It really is a process of coming together and lifting each other up. And this ends up meaning that our dollars end up being spent more efficiently. We're trying to avoid, redundancy or overlap. And we can say, oh, you're handling that. We can do this over here. And Allison talked about that a lot on that earlier slide. And I think that that's a big advantage about our work together in this space. Also, success builds on success. So those of us in this group that have the unenviable job of making sure that the money continues to flow, it takes resources to support these sorts of efforts. And it's a lot easier to go out and ask for funds if you can say, hey, we're building on these campaigns that we've done, and here are real numbers that tell you about the differences that have been made by the work that we've been doing together. We have great conversations when each time I can say, when DHS brings in a new idea and brings it to this group, when we bring it in and we put it in front of people's eyes, it does not look the same when we leave. And that's because you've got all different sets of eyeballs and, again, perspectives and backgrounds that ask, key questions that make these big campaigns feel a lot more manageable when you feel like you're not doing it all on your own, that you're actually getting feedback, particularly for DMS, to get it from folks who are out in the communities, who are really working face to face with members and have a sense of, actually, that message might not resonate so well, and this is why. But maybe if we tweak it a little bit to look like this, then we can move forward and we feel a lot more steady and tied in to the audiences that we're trying to talk to the message and get the messages that we need to get to them. And so if you can't tell already by the enthusiasm in this session and all the folks that are talking, it's a group that really does inspire each other, bring energy to the process, and have great conversations, all in service of being better about how we communicate about health insurance options in the state of Wisconsin.
Okay, so we can't draw a direct data correlation between our marketing efforts, our messaging, promotions, whatever we're putting out there, and enrollment numbers. But we like to look at this graph and think that we're having a big impact. We really started coming together and working together efficiently in 2020, and that was the first year we started to like move forward. And 2021 we were rolling, and then 2022 we were like a well-oiled machine. So we like to look at this graph and think very positive thoughts about our impact. So I can't draw a direct correlation though. So we just wanted to just highlight a few unexpected positive results. I think a lot of our work and the success we've had speaks for itself, but a lot of us personally within our professional realm have had some unexpected positive results. When I have a very small team, and sometimes we need a little bit of inspiration, and being able to reach out to different comms people at different agencies for ideas to bounce off, to get inspired and move forward. Sometimes you get a rut, and that's invaluable. We're constantly, I might see something that's coming from Empower, and I get really inspired and say, hey, I have a great idea. And it puts us down this whole new road of new creative and messaging that we're really proud of and does well in the market. We've talked about the support and feedback, but there's also a lot of just personal professional support it's hard to find. And we have developed stronger relationships between all of our agencies in our roles. So we're very proud of that. And it also helps us better understand some of the motivations and movement that different agencies might have when we're working together, and we can better hold space for each other and have better respect for each agency's role. So I don't know, Claudine, if you have anything to add to this one.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in here, because I think there are a couple of things that I can say from a state agency perspective. As I said, I've worked in state government now for almost 10 years, and at different levels before that. I was on a group call probably 2 years ago, maybe, with other state Medicaid agencies. And one of the talking points was we were discussing communications. And one of the talking points was that state agencies shouldn't try to do cool social media or anything dynamic, because people expect their state agencies to be really dull and boring. And they trust their messaging more if it's all in black and white and is on the verge of unintelligible. I might have been adding that myself. That's how I kind of heard it. And so there wasn't actually a lot of support to find out, like, what is the interesting, where are our opportunities to communicate better? And I was really looking for that when I stepped into this role. And this group has been just such a great set of resources to do that. I don't know honestly, if we'd be where we are and have made the changes that we'd made if we wouldn't have had this group to bounce ideas off of. And a couple of things that just a couple of brief examples. One, I don't know if people have seen, and we'll talk more about the unwinding as we go through this today, but we set up a page on our website, and we were just going to have like a calendar on it so that people knew when they were supposed to renew each month, when they were scheduled, what were the days when renewals opened and when they closed. And we took it to this group, and I actually wasn't at that meeting, but our comm specialist came back and said, hey, we need to build a mechanism so that people can sign up for reminders. And I said, wait, we do? And she said, yeah, this is what we got. We had this great conversation this morning at the OCI Partnership Marketing Work Group. And we talked all about how this is a way, and now it exists and it's there. And we weren't planning on doing that, but we were able to put that together just based on the conversations that happened here. Another thing that I would just flag is that I love being able to come to this group and get reinforcement and support for messages that I'm trying to kind of share about how we talk to people. So one of the things that's always a challenge in government is that leaders worry about panicking people by having messaging that's, you know, too intense. Oh, you could lose your coverage. Oh, are we going to scare people? Maybe we should talk delicately about this. It's great to be able to come back to this group and say, do you think that this language is too strong? How about this? Could we go this direction? And really have, again, that contact with members, that feedback, that evidence that says, no, people want you to talk straightforwardly about what's going on in this process and be as clear as possible, because this is complex stuff, but it's really, really important. And so having this group, again, to come back, bounce ideas off of, get that reinforcement or a new perspective or evidence from focus groups has just been invaluable for the state. So again, I think that you wouldn't necessarily expect all of the things that have happened that have come out of this, but I think it's made messaging in Wisconsin better as on the whole.
Great, absolutely agree, Claudia. Okay, we have our first poll question. So what media channel do you think is the most important for marketing to the specific audience that you would like to reach? So we have a variety there. Newspapers, cable TV, streaming TV, social media, paid Google ads, radio, bus placards, or billboards. And I can't tell from my end if the poll question has gone live.
Yes, it has gone live and people are voting. I can let you know when it starts to slow down. Usually we like to let people, you know, get a total of maybe up to about a minute. Looks like people are still voting, so we'll give it another 15, 20 seconds and then we can share. All right, I will go ahead. Oh, looks like it might be shared now or soon. So yeah, okay. There we go.
Great. Wow, this is an interesting response. 68% overwhelmingly social media. And I don't know that I can see entirely on the screen, but I see a 9% streaming, 7% cable. I can't see what's beneath bus placards.
Yeah, and that's 2% billboards is the one below that.
Okay, great. Well, that's very fascinating. Okay, let's go ahead and jump back in. All right, so we wanted to give you some examples of creative we've put out into the market and we had a nice response to, so you can see some of the creative we think works.
WisCovered.com was launched in June 2020 and helps put people in touch with assistance via phone or web chat from organizations like Covering Wisconsin and 211. It's available in English, Spanish, and Hmong, and was designed to work best on smartphones for Wisconsinites who may not have access to a computer or lack internet access at home.
Okay, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the television public service announcements that we've been able to put out. What's interesting about these is the scripts and the concepts were completely built within the group and agreed upon, proofread. I mean, it's a whole process. And then Covering Wisconsin was the lead agency for filming, but we've also in the past shared editing tasks. We've had members of different agencies come for the filming to give feedback and direction. So it's, and I will say also some of the navigators are not always from Covering Wisconsin. So from Partnership Community Health Center, we had Julia Garvey come and do our last one that's out in the market right now. So it's very exciting. These direct people to either call 211 or go to WisCovered. The one that is here was from open enrollment. And because it's a public service announcement on public broadcast television, we can't see how many people exactly saw it. But we do have some Nielsen data showing us that this particular campaign that we paid for usually gets over 7.5 million impressions. So we're very excited about that. There was some additional funding support that helped us prolong our campaign because we didn't have enough dollars to stretch it for all of open enrollment. And so I just want to call out for the last open enrollment, it was Common Ground, Anthem, UW Health, and OCI who were able to chip in and help us make that go a little bit longer. I will say that was a statewide broadcast on 36 local TV stations. Okay, Imani's going to talk about radio.
Yes, and so really quickly, and I'm not sure if we're able to play the audio pieces. If not, no worries. I know this presentation will be able to be sent to you all, but I'll play it first, and then I'll give a little bit of context. Let's see if it goes.
I pushed play, but I don't hear anything.
Okay, no worries. I can leave it all to your imagination. And
it is loaded in the PowerPoint, so when the slides go out, everything that has video or sound, you'll be able to play and listen to.
Yes, and we highly encourage you to engage with the content because biasly we think it's really cool, but I do think also to be a little bit more serious that it does show you the variety and the diversity in the types of content. So everywhere where you see just like a visual, there's going to be a video linked. There are all types of creative that we're really excited to show you. But as we're talking about radio, for one of the particular focuses with Medicaid and with the unwinding, we wanted to have content that could play on Pandora as an example. And that's actually where we streamed the content. And this was in partnership with Covering Wisconsin. And the idea was to draw traffic back to the Covering Wisconsin website or to draw people to download the My Access app. And the appeal was to reach a younger audience that that related to a lot more pop, trending, or urban music. And so again, because I know you all can't hear the content right now, certainly just take a moment to just download it. And I think you'll appreciate, again, just the diversity in the content. And then Stephanie, I know there was another campaign for open enrollment. You want to talk a little bit about that and kind of who we reached?
Yeah, so that was also another public service announcement through the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association. And it did play on 162 stations, both FM and AM throughout the state. And it also directed people to Wiscovered or to call 211, and that was for open enrollment. And Nielsen data shows us that it gets just short of 12 million impressions. Okay, Kelsey.
During last year's open enrollment campaign, OCI ran Google display and keyword search ads. We had over 7.2 million impressions through Google ads last year. So you can see some of our ad examples and some of the search words that we used.
I know one of the things that was exciting for me with this campaign is we were able to share some of our creative that OCI was able to brand and put out into the market. So we were very excited about that. Okay. Imani, did you want to start us off on this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So what you are seeing here is this really awesome creative that was put together by the Covering Wisconsin team. And as Stephanie echoed, and will continue to echo, almost all of the creative that you're seeing presented here was tested not only among the internal marketing group, but through different focus groups that included community members, public health agencies, and other key stakeholders, so that we were being mindful of who resonated with the content the most? What types of messaging made the most sense, especially as we're having this big unwinding conversation in the middle of the open enrollment season, right? And so it was really important that across the board, despite the channel, that ongoing process continued to happen. And as you see with Google being, and I noticed that wasn't one of the top prioritized channels. What I will say is that Google, especially display ads, is one of the most recommended channels for pushing out content for health insurance. Why? Because a lot of individuals are actively searching still to this day, even though social is socialized as a really great platform for getting information out, which it is. And you'll also see by some of the impressions we collectively were able to gather, Google is certainly not a platform to disregard or to forget about. And I think what we had the opportunity to do as Covering Wisconsin was just test out what type of messaging worked, and what's also been able to be beneficial was just testing out messaging. We noticed that messages like worried about losing health insurance, something that was very direct, but didn't exactly play into fear mongering, just more relatable, empathetic based messaging was really helpful. And we reached different audiences statewide. And on the screen, you can see a little bit about who we were initially aiming to target and who actually was really responsive to the actual content. So just wanted to give a little bit of that high level, and Stephanie, certainly welcoming you to just add anything if I missed anything.
Yeah, I just want to say that, to be really clear, Google puts ads out to people who are actively searching about something related to health insurance. That's why it is like here, you might see, 35,000 impressions doesn't seem like a lot compared to some of our other marketing, but that's 35,000 impressions of people actively searching for something related to health insurance, and they want that message. So it tends to be extremely effective. And when it says women ages 55 to 64, that's who predominantly was responding to that particular ad. So it tells you a little bit more about what's working with who. And I know that I think it got lost, but in this other ad here on the right-hand side, I believe that one had higher numbers for men, if I remember correctly, Imani.
Yes, it did. And it was just to add a quick tidbit with Google Display, just for those of you who may not be as familiar with it, you have the opportunity to upload up to 15 different images. And so the Covering Wisconsin team was really, really great at creating such diverse representative images. And so you had different family dynamics, different age groups, and that allowed the system to really test the creative. And what we noticed is that men, I believe it was ages 25 to 55, really resonated with different content. And we were really shocked by what types of images individuals resonated with most. So you want to continue to test, and Google is a really great platform to test because they're already engaging with those in that movable middle, right? With those that are actively searching, and they give you a lot of creative space to actually test as many creative as possible. All right. And so, and as we start talking more about the creative, this, and Allison, I'll also invite you to speak. This is an example of the MCAN creative that was pushed out. One of the things that I think is important to elevate across the board, and I want to thank Claudine for kind of reiterating this a little earlier, is that one of the key benefits of this group coming together was pushing out consistent messaging. I do think that it is important for the audience here to remember that consistent messaging does not mean that you have to sacrifice creativity by any means. And so the MCAN approach to this was really creative, and to think of something that's really out of this world. And at the time, there were a lot of conversations happening specifically around savings for health insurance. And so we were trying to think about how to create consistent messaging that still felt timely, but didn't have to be as black and white or, you know, super direct or really dry. We wanted to have something that was a bit more creative. And I think that certainly played in our favor when we look at the impressions, especially on Google. There were over 1 million impressions just for this type of creative. And it had a really broad reach with individuals that connected with it. But we noticed women ages 25 to 34 statewide, and in particular in Milwaukee, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, really resonated with the content. And so I think one of the bigger pieces that I wanted to reiterate with this is, have fun with the creative, thinking about where the creative is going to go. You can think of how to play with the text, how to play with the colors, and just be mindful that, people are going to be getting these messages in different forms, and it can say the same thing, but you don't have to, again, sacrifice that creativity. So, Allison, anything you want to add to that slide?
Yeah, I think I'll just back up a little bit for context. So the Milwaukee Enrollment Network, as we noted, is the regional or enrollment network for Milwaukee County. So we have a very specific focus area in terms of our audiences and very specific demographic, right? Across the state, the demographics are different and creative will look different. But we are so lucky to work with Empower and Imani, who's on the call here, representing them to manage and execute and do the creative for the Milwaukee Enrollment Network. So you'll see a lot of times our creative may point people to Healthy MKE or to Covering Wisconsin or to something more local, because we've been able to establish that Healthy MKE, which is a local site to Milwaukee, that's a health education site that has a lot of information on it, is a trusted source that people know locally. So you'll see kind of the different strategies to get folks back to what they most trust based on maybe what region or what your audience network is. So it's really excellent to be able to do that work locally and say, hey, we're going to take this angle because these are our demographics, and then see that be adjusted throughout the state based on our connection and transparency and keeping things connected. So Imani's going to talk to a couple of the other creative things down the road that are MCAN associated, but just want you to keep in mind that will be a lot of kind of the direction and the audience and the focus of MCAN specifically, which is why there might be a little bit of a difference in some of the way things are designed or the strategies or et cetera, because it's a specific audience. So always a reminder in there, and I think Stephanie's going to do this now, to think about your audience and what your specific goals are. So, Stephanie.
I think Imani was going to speak to this one.
No worries. No, you're fine. And Allison, I want to thank you for allowing us to pause and reflect on that context, because I think in particular for this group, it only reiterates the value and the impact of collaboration, right? I know that's why this group is here today. And I know Stephanie called to it earlier, but you will see with the different creative, there are some Covering Wisconsin creative that routes back to WisCovered, right? There is MCAN creative that routes to either Covering Wisconsin or to Healthy MKE. And the goal is to think about not the individual brand or agency, but what is the best approach to supporting different populations and getting them the support that they need as it relates to health insurance. And so I just wanted to echo and thank you for elevating that, because that really is what drove a lot of the ways that this group continues to work together, because the work is ongoing. Now, as we prepare to shift, I just want to highlight that there were a few social media campaign considerations across the board that we all had, and just some things to be mindful of and takeaways for you all. So 68% of you identify and prioritize social media as one of the best ways to engage with community. So I hope, if anything, you walk away and you have these considerations in mind. So when you think about social media, don't be afraid to leverage influencers. Utilizing real people with real stories are absolutely recommended ways to continue to boost connections with existing brands, to drive higher connections and ultimately those conversations and those conversions, because our goal is to help individuals find their insurance or renew as we're going through the renewal process. So be mindful of how you can incorporate real people into your campaigns. And then, as we'll continue to echo, make sure you're thinking outside of the box. Social media is the platform that forces us to do that. You are literally competing for 3 seconds of someone's time. So it's okay to discuss serious topics in rather cool ways. And don't be afraid to actually test the messaging. So as as we mentioned, we have collectively these processes to test internally and externally. And don't be afraid to do that externally with your A/B approach, with your messages or your creative. You never know what the algorithm is going to push out there, and you may be surprised. And to that, try to stay trending. You know, it's okay to be a little cliche or a little corny. You know, sometimes that actually works with social media. That's where people like to see that type of content, right? It may be a little easier to slide that versus a billboard. So don't be afraid to do that and get creative overall. And then do not forget the value of videos. I think in this next round, you're going to see so many different types of creative. Video is something that we've noticed works. GIF also is a type of video, so don't forget the value of GIFs, and you'll be able to see some of that represented in the toolkit. So we'll kind of quickly go through the rest of the content because there's some really exciting creative for you all. So let's kind of start to high level some of what we've been able to put out together. So as we talk about MCAN, I want to just kind of set up the stage for this and then give Allison the floor to kind of talk about some other contextual pieces that really was able to allow the content to really be successful. We had previously ran value-based messages in the past, and we tested that among this group and among community organizations, community partners. And really, when we say value-based messages, that's something like health is wealth, or your health matters, you care, you are important, person-centered messaging. And we noticed that that was rather successful, a little bit more than cost-based messages. And so we wanted to reiterate that, you know, we want to, in the next season for this current open enrollment, we want to push out messages that allow people to think about themselves in a little bit more of a subtle way from a presentation standpoint. And so we had different videos. These are 15-second clips. Again, if we're not able to play any of the videos, I highly encourage you to watch these because these have a bit of a lo-fi feel to them. If you're familiar with that category of music, it's like the ambient, relaxing tone. We wanted to play with colors, and we noticed that these colors, blues and purples, were actually quite trending. And so we used our research, we did some testing with messaging, and we ended up pushing out this content, which really worked out in our favor. We generated over 1 million impressions from a very short period of time, which was that November of last year to early January of this year. And so I'll pause to see if any of the videos would work. And if not, I'm just going to teasing you guys and making you guys want to watch the videos later. So let's pause and see if we can try that Your Health is Wealth in the bottom left corner. Let's see if that one works.
Imani, I don't even have play symbols on any of these. I don't know why in this format it's not. It showed on the PowerPoint normally, but not in this.
So we're just teasing you guys. We got to watch all the cool content. We're going to make you watch it later, so no worries. But what we did play with for this particular style, and what I want to appreciate is that all of the creative teams made sure to create something that visually looks so different from one another, but there was still that consistent base messaging. And you'll find that whether it was something locally, so this, because it was from MCAN, was targeted to the Milwaukee audience, this is still messaging that could test and be successful statewide. And so I do just want to add that piece, but we had different illustrations and animations and so many really cool features that were kind of poppy, and it really worked well for the platform and the medium. So now we'll just kind of jump to the next one. No worries if it's not playing, Stephanie. I won't cry about it. It's okay. And then Stephanie, do you want me to take this or?
No, I can take this one.
Okay.
So, and I know we're a little short on time, so I'm going to go a little bit faster. So again, more videos. These were both for YouTube and social media. I just want to highlight, yes, videos do better, but every once in a while you can get a static post to perform. And we were really pleased that this one here, with the colorful backgrounds of the different people, and the message was need help paying for healthcare, did really well. It was shared by the Lieutenant Governor, and we got a lot of views without even putting any money to boost it. So we did end up boosting it. So if you're not familiar with using these platforms, if you can get a lot of shares in a short period of time, and we had a lot within 2 days, your money goes further when you boost it. So we were very excited about that. And we noticed that message, need help paying for healthcare, really did well on social media. And We didn't really exhaust it last year. We had a lot of other messages like health is wealth. So we decided to bring it back again this year with a fresh creative. And influencers, Imani.
Right, and I'll just be super brief with this because I reiterated it earlier. This is just to show you the impact of using real people with real stories. We tested out different platforms, TikTok, Snapchat, Meta. Facebook is listed there twice, my apologies. But we noticed that in utilizing influencers, giving them some creative freedom to highlight their stories in their own way, the content went so much further than just us telling people. And that is really one of the key takeaways. Social media has been one of the more successful platforms for both MCAN covering for all of the entities involved today. And I just want to say, across the board with the influencers we've worked with, they have a reach of over 1.5 million followers with a heavy base in the state of Wisconsin. And so for us, that was a really great potential. And there were over 42,000 link clicks to various websites, whether it was the WIS covered landing page, whether it was Covering Wisconsin or Healthy MKE, which all had the same goal to provide direct resources to individuals. Of those link clicks, most of those clicks came from TikTok. So I think in thinking about influencers and social media, don't forget about TikTok. It is a really great platform that has opportunity to be leveraged more. So I think that was my biggest takeaway for this slide, and then we'll keep it moving.
I did want to add, we did notice though that those views and clicks were predominantly women on TikTok. And we get more views from men on Snapchat recently. I'm not sure if there was another platform, Imani, that was performing as well for men besides Snapchat.
Snapchat was more dominating, and for Meta or Facebook, it was pretty split between men and women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. This is. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Stephanie and Imani. For the next few slides, we'll show you some of our more traditional marketing efforts. This slide contains some of OCI's bus, placard, and billboard examples. So every piece of the market study that we talked about earlier was used in last year's open enrollment campaign. We chose specific regions for billboards and created 7 to 8 potential marketing touch points for each person in those regions. Due to our involvement in the marketing work group, we were able to focus part of our efforts on rural parts of the state, as we knew that the Madison and Milwaukee areas would be covered by Covering Wisconsin and Empower. We could complement their marketing efforts without duplication. So we had almost 3.5 million impressions via billboards and 1.78 million impressions via bus ads.
And I just want to highlight that some of these cost-based messages really came out of focus group studies from healthcare.gov showed that they were particularly effective. So. Okay, so Covering Wisconsin and MCAN, we also did some buses. And then what I really want to highlight in this slide is buses aren't as great for a platform to convince people, but they're echoing other things that people might be seeing in the market, maybe on TV or social media. And so it reinforces that message. But you have to think of a few things. They've got to be colorful. They have to be really to the point. It can't have a lot of text on it. It's got to draw the attention. And you might notice that in the billboards, especially, they are branded with local agencies. So they might have been billboards that were placed in a particular region, and we branded it with the local agency so that they could get the recognition and the calls for being that navigator, local help in the region. So, and we did that with buses as well. And I know none of you, well, not none, most of you didn't think that newspapers were super valuable, as we saw in the poll, but it depends on where you're at. In the rural regions, especially very, very rural regions, you know, the local newspaper might be the place where the local stories and whatnot are happening, and people are reading those papers, especially if your kids are featured as on the high school teams, and you're very excited about that. So we have found that when we place rural newspaper ads, we focus on the local content, and we try to focus messaging on things that are valuable in the community. So here are just a few of the examples of what we ran last open enrollment. And I will say, I've heard from a couple of navigators in those regions that they did get quite a few phone calls, more phone calls from the newspapers than any other type of messaging we put out. Okay.
Thanks, Steph. So covering Wisconsin, OCI, and Empower all put together some outreach toolkits for open enrollment. They're a reliable way to scale consistent messaging. It's collaboration and action. It's a great approach when time, resources, and funding are limited, and it increases overall return on investment. So on the right-hand side there, you can see some of OCI's social media posts from last year being shared by elected officials, public libraries, health departments, community health centers and enrollment assisters, other state agencies, nonprofits, and community organizations. So OCI has assembled and shared free toolkits over the past 4 years. That includes those social media graphics and press release templates, flyers, social media header images, and more.
Okay, and then Covering Wisconsin also puts out a toolkit. I'll be really brief. We have, usually we lean into some imagery that's reflective of different communities, and then we have multiple formats you can get that in, such as flyers, outreach cards, social media. And this year we introduced a wallet size card. So we heard from some navigators that when they're out at events, maybe at a county fair, people don't have anywhere to put an outreach card. So they needed something small that would fit in a wallet.
All right, and I'll just be really briefly just echoing that, again, one of the benefits of toolkits is that it really is a reflection of collaboration and action, and it scales out the reach. MKIN had put out several versions of materials, and they were also multilingual. I know that isn't something that was referenced, but all the materials that you have seen up to this point is also available in multiple languages, and you'll all be able to have direct access to these toolkits. So we are actively asking you to continue to share and reiterate these messages with the markets that you are all a part of or the markets that you directly serve. Because again, it's very helpful to just help with that consistent messaging goal and pushing that out. And you can see that toolkits offer the opportunity for you to pick and choose what you like and then share it out to the world. So that's kind of what I wanted to reiterate here.
Okay, and then Claudine.
Yeah, so I'm just going to jump right on the toolkit bandwagon because honestly, I think we really learned a lot about how to do messaging toolkits in this space from the members of this group. And so you'll see the link listed there for our partner toolkit. If you haven't gone there and looked at it yet, I encourage you to do that. We were one of the first states in the country to create a partner toolkit with messaging materials available for folks to use around unwinding. We were one of the first states to get one going up and live. And I'm going to talk in a second about what we focused on, but you can see some of the early messaging there on the right. We were really talking focused because we didn't know when the public health emergency was going to end, and continuous coverage messaging. We didn't want to get people thinking about that or ramped up for it until we knew it was going to happen. We had to, we had directive things to say. And so what we focused on was what could we do to lay a good foundation for unwinding, and updating people's addresses was a really important message that we wanted to get out. So early on, there are a lot of materials in the toolkit about updating your address. I will just say that when this is anecdotal data, please, if there are any if there are people in the audience, do not quote me on these figures, but kind of what I heard when I stepped into my position is, hey, turnover churn is a big issue because, and one of the nagging problems is that people don't update their addresses with the state. And then when we're sending out letters telling people, hey, it's your time to renew, we get a lot of returned mail. And so what was great about this is that we saw, I heard kind of anecdotally 25%, maybe 30%. Sometimes we were seeing returned mail rates. During the unwinding period, we are in single digits for returned mail, the state of Wisconsin. And that means not that there aren't other issues, attached to completing renewals in a timely fashion, but at least when it comes to people getting the mail that they need, getting the notices that they need to get, we have a big decrease in that returned mail rate. And that's incredible. And it really does come down to the work that we did with partners, sharing out the materials that we put in this toolkit. A little shout out to the Unwinding Task Force. If you haven't heard about that, it's a group of very active stakeholders and partners that we work with around Medicaid unwinding. And so we've been partner toolkit out through that group. And we think that that's how these materials got used. And we'll see some examples of that later. Another just great success story that I will say that, for the state of Wisconsin, for DMS, a lot of times what we're doing is promoting operational things. So access and my access, using those online tools is super important because it allows people to be able to manage their benefits on their own schedule, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so we, in this group of social media materials, we were really promoting those tools to get people to sign up for accounts and get to know those tools and use them. We went from about 330 active accounts in February of 2022 to 670,000 active accounts in February of 2023. So in 1 year, we more than doubled what was already a pretty impressive number of active accounts on our systems. Again, not just because DHS posted these, but because we posted them, and our partners like you all and the groups here helped us amplify this messaging, make sure that the messaging was on target and was ready for people to use. Next one. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. The only thing that I will call out on this one is that you can see the views and impressions, not just in English, but also in Hmong and also in Spanish. And so if there's one thing that I would really request from people is that we don't actually see a lot of engagement, not a lot of shares to networks that are from our materials that we post in other languages. So if you ever see posts from us in Hmong and Spanish, sharing, re-Xing, I don't know what retweeting has become, but or however it works, helping to amplify those messages would be appreciated too. These are some of the things that you're going to get used to seeing for our unwinding campaign, making sure that people know each month when the kind of that mid-month date when they need to get their renewals in, when those are. We're posting those on a regular basis. These are some additional ones that we have done to keep the messaging fresh. One of the things that we get whenever we come back to this group and say, hey, we've had these up for a while. What do we do now? And we run these through and get good feedback. And finally, this is just a set of materials that you'll see. Again, go to that partner toolkit link, go through all of the kind of accordion sections, have all kinds of materials in them, flyers, outreach cards. When we post social media, we actually embed the social media in those parts of the toolkit. So you don't have to go searching the DHS social media account to find things that you want to amplify. They're right in that toolkit. You can just jump on a link, share it out to your network, and that really expands our reach. So these are some things that we've done recently to promote the fact that even if parents feel like they might not be able to renew, that their kids could still be covered. So they should still do their renewals. And then just some basic back to school, keep your kids covered, through Medicaid posts.
Stephanie, you are muted.
Thank you. I'm just going to skip that last poll question since we're short on time and jump right into how different agencies can personalize and use those resources in the community.
So as an end user, as well as a member of this team, and just looking at all of the things that we've created over the past couple of years, it gets me really excited. And I think about some of the discussions that we had about, the sticky note pieces and what colors do we go with and how do we want to get into the rural community. And all of that is really about our commitment as a group to make sure that our messages and our conversations are really engaging and they're really reaching out to the populations that we want to connect with, because ultimately our goal is not just to get the messaging out there, but really to get people to stay enrolled or re-enroll and get that coverage so they can access the care that they need. And as I'm thinking about how almost every day someone says, hey, Trish, can you get me some materials? And I say, we can certainly get you materials that have our logo on it and get you connected, but I can also direct you to the toolkit and you can look at some things that may resonate best with your community or the group that you're working with. So as we engage around this, know that all of our focus is really about finding ways to keep this understandable and relevant. But we have a bigger focus as well. This is just not arts and crafts. This is really looking at this issue of communication and strategy with a lens of health equity and cultural competence. We're not just tossing something into Spanish without vetting it out and talking about what those words mean, or looking at our Hmong translation to really say, what does it mean to renew now? Do we need to give people more specific dates so it really resonates with them in their culture? How are we making sure all of this is coming together? So as we said at the beginning, that this material lives and breathes important messages, but really the synergy and strategy that we're tied to brings people to our CACs and our navigators so they can enroll and we can move our state forward in a most powerful way to make sure we're transforming lives and improving health due to health insurance enrollment. So I look at this slide right here and it just brings a smile to me, because when we talk about all of the state level communication strategies, at the end of the day, it's all of you who are out in the field, whether you're at a health fair, giving out a flyer or talking about this, connecting someone to the QR code, sweating it out on a hot day out in Calumet County or in the inner city or up north, really trying to make sure that you're getting these messages to the people who need them most. And I look at Dolly, who's one of our longest standing CACs, and Alondra, who's coming on to become a CAC for the first time this year. This is what the work is about. It is about the power and the engagement that we have at the grassroots level, that state level communications can provide us with the materials so we can link people to the coverage and the care that they need and deserve. So it's an exciting time for us to be able to share all of this. And we're also going to do a little commercial break promo to see if we've inspired you to come join with us in this discussion at the state level.
All right. So as I know we're pretty much at time and we didn't leave much for questions. As I'm waiting to see if anyone queues up for questions, I'll just share in the PowerPoint our links to our different social media sites and toolkits. And if Kelsey, you'd like to make the entry for the slide?
Yeah, thank you. If you're interested in joining our work group, you can contact me. My email address is right there in the PowerPoint, so feel free to reach out and I will get you looped into our bi-monthly meetings. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I did get a notice that there was a question in the chat about radio announcements in Spanish. We do have some out in the community, and if you have a platform to share more announcements in Spanish, reach out to us. We can connect you with various resources in Spanish to put out into the community, but I thank you for highlighting that. And feel free to reach out and give us your unique suggestions for your community. We always appreciate that. So, and then there was another question Do you know any solutions being considered to combat long hold times for the Milwaukee enrollment services? Ooh. I think I'll skip on that one. And I have not looked at the other questions. So Jen, do you want to guide us to any questions that weren't answered that we should highlight?
It looks like there's a question about if we use in-house designers or private designers. And I can speak for OCI. We design everything in-house.
Yep. Everyone here represents our creative outputs that are going out. We have teams at Covering Wisconsin. Empower specializes in design. OCI has a designers. And then DHS does as well. So
the Milwaukee Enrollment Network might be the only odd person out there that we do engage with Empower as a marketing agency to produce and put out our creative.
Yeah. So the Milwaukee Enrollment Services long wait times, I'll let another session answer that one. So.
Yeah, all right. I think that's it for questions. Yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. This panel has been wonderful. There was a comment just saying, thanking you all and saying that was a really great presentation. And I concur. This group is so dynamic and energetic. I'm not surprised you've been so effective in this work. So that concludes this presentation, and that also concludes our session for today. And so thank you, everybody. We will see you all again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and looking forward to it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you, everyone.